Hello, good morning. Welcome to Revelator Alf Live. It's a radio podcast thing, don't you know? And here we're talking all things motorcycling, bikerish, whatever you want to talk about today. The lines are open, as it were. Just have your say. Let us know where you are, where you're riding today. If you're riding this weekend, basically, I'm going to do the show. And then I've got a couple of chores to do. I'm going to be out on the bike this afternoon. Got a couple of places to get out to and go and see. But by all means, let us know where you are, what you're doing all this weekend, and what you're riding, and all that kind of stuff. You could also follow the channel from with all the social media pages as well. You can help support via PayPal or Patreon. We've got our first Patreon there as well. So thank you very much to our follower there. That's very good. Now, what I will do, I just will quickly bring up. I've really got to give a shout out. This is like a new thing for me. So William Casperson, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your support there, and hopefully you'll enjoy some of the content there. But also, there are 3 levels there on Patreon, and it's just a general. One is just a general support to help bring this thing together, this radio podcast thing, the videos, the website, everything together. So just bring you more content, right? I am planning, hopefully, if the Patreon thing takes off in terms of more and more followers, to do specific shows for that sector as well. But for here, it's always free for you guys. Right, so you can follow on the social media channels. You go to the website, revelatoralf.com. Lots of blog posts there, information being updated there as well. So go check that out and, have a bit of fun with it. Right, let's enough of that, shall we? Enough of that, right? So there are a few little news stories that I'm going to go through, because do you know what? I don't really want to talk about the news stories right now today, but there is something I want to talk about, and that's motorcycle charity events. Are they kosher? Is your money that you're donating, or the money that you're raising, specifically money, not gifts or toys, like I said in toy runs, but I'll talk about that briefly. But money, is the money that you're raising, is it going to the cause that you think it's going to, right? So I only thought about this literally the other day. It was about 3 days ago, and I came across a little soundbite of a popular YouTuber who was raising money for a charitable event that he was running. All great. It's all, all kosher. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with what he was doing, right? But he mentioned briefly about the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. And the only reason that it triggered the memory of this, what he said, is that, the reason why it triggered the memory of what he said was that I got an email from the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride saying, hey, look, they're happening in May, I think it is. Is it May? May, they're all over the world. And, you can sign up and join up and all that sort of stuff. But he's basically saying, I can't remember the exact words he said, but he's basically saying, I'm not supporting Distinguished Gentleman's Ride because the money doesn't go where it needs to go. Whereas if I set it up in my own charitable event, the money goes where I want it to go. And I was like, oh, what's going on there? So I've done a bit of digging, sort of tried to look at both sides and see what's up. So listen, if you've got any thoughts on this, let us know. If you Distinguished Gentleman's Ride or any other motorcycle charitable event, and you're raising money for a cause, then there are lots of things to consider here before I think we start pointing the finger, as it were. And I'm going to give you my experiences of where I see money going, and how in many cases there's only one way to do it, if you know what I mean. All right, so we're going to dig into that, but first of all, let's just get into some of the news items and see what's what out in the biking world. Right, let's do that, shall we? Okay, a few things going out on the. Let me just have a look at that. Just 1 second. Where is this one? This one, isn't it? Oh, for some reason I'm not getting. Here we go. Right, all of a sudden. I don't know why. I couldn't get the websites. Right, let me just bring up the website here, first of all. Right, so this is... Oops, wrong one. Wrong one. Here we go. The first story here is from Motorcycle News, and it's Langan Motorcycles, and they basically got... they're coming out with a four-stroke bike here, right? So Langan Motorcycles, as you don't know, they're a sort of bespoke motorcycle brand from the UK, but they've got the Langan Go four-stroke, a British firm, behind the bespoke two-stroke roadster, Confirm a Mystery Project. Well, the Mystery Project is a four-stroke. Wigan-based, Wigan is North UK, England, I should say, for those of you who don't know, are ramping up development of a new four-stroke machine that could be revealed as a concept as early as a Motorcycle Live this coming November. Well, it's quite a few months away, right? But they're keeping their powder dry in terms of precise details. So we don't know what it is. But suffice to say, I'm quite a bit of a fan of Langan Motorcycles. There is something really cool and really sort of mechanical. And you look at this bike. Don't get me wrong, they're not the cheapest, but you don't expect them to be the cheapest when you're talking about these kinds of motorcycles, bespoke brands and just, hand-built bikes and everything like that. But it's, I've seen them at the shows the last few years, and you just they always attract a crowd, and like an admiring crowd, and not necessarily a crowd of motorcycling engineers, but people maybe who just appreciate what they're seeing. Do you know what I mean? And it's all there on display. You can see the bike. It's like a naked bike, and you can see the welds, and you can see the engineering and the curves, and the frame and everything. And I really like that. So anyway, this is some news for you. If you want to go and read the article from Motorcycle News, please feel free to do so. But this is from Langan Motorcycles. They're looking to develop a four-stroke motorcycle as opposed to just the two-stroke. Okay, next story here is from Indian Motorcycles. I've also got the press release here. Have I got the press release? There we go. The press release is there as well, just to let you know. But this is from Visor Down. Basically, if you remember a few weeks ago, I talked about Indian Motorcycles. They've partnered up with a designer to come out with a custom FTR 1200 for Sebastian Loeb, the 9 times World Rally driver, World Rally Championship driver, and basically. They're going to make this bike, or 2 bikes, and say one he's going to keep, Sebastian Loeb, and one they're going to, raffle off, as it were. And the only way you can get into the raffle is if you actually go and test ride one of these FTRs, right? So if you want to go back to one of my previous videos and everything, and I've actually gone to ride one of these as well. So hey, I'm in the mix for one of these bikes, right? But anyway, Indian Motorcycles, they've actually teamed up with a Sideburn magazine, but also Cheetah Custom Motorcycles to develop a custom FTR as well, which they're going to reveal at the London Bike Show. Not the London Bike Show. What am I talking? It's the Bike Shed show later this year. So it's got the video there. I mean, go and watch. If you're interested, it's all on Indian Motorcycles, Indian Motorcycle X Sideburn Magazine X Cheetah, and they're starting release media about that bike or that bike project as well. So if you're interested in that, go check them out. Okay, here's another thing. Now, if you talked. I mentioned this maybe a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago, in terms of Indian Motorcycles, and watch out for them because they've got a whole group of motorcycles which they're planning to release this year, and they're kind of drip feeding, or it's not they as a company, but bits of news is coming out drip feeding of people spotting the test bikes or the prototypes or whatever coming out. And the 650cc motorcycle or engine is the one that they're going to be putting into different platforms a lot more. They're also talking about liquid cooled engines as well, and expansion on that as well. So just watch out for Indian motorcycle manufacturer Royal Enfield. Anyway, so basically they've got this Scrambler 650, and they're going to call it the Sherpa. So this Sherpa motorcycle is got a 650 engine. It's a parallel twin, air oil cooled, fuel injected engine that develops 46.3 brake horsepower, 52.3 newton meters of torque, paired with a 6-speed manual gearbox. And obviously more information going to go on there. But they're saying upcoming Royal Enfield bikes in India. This is from financialexpress.com, which is an Indian publication. After launching the all-new Super Meteor 650, which I said, you got to watch out the likes of Harley Davidson, because this is like a cruiser bike that many people who kind of aspire to that cruiser can't afford it, but they may go for the 650 Royal Enfield, and it might tick a lot of boxes for people. Anyway, so after launching the all-new Super Meteor 650 and the updated versions of the Interceptor and Continental GT 650, Royal Enfield is planning to launch several other motorcycles, right? In India, this is, but you would imagine that they'll slowly be disseminated throughout the world. The company is working on the new generation Bullet 350, Shotgun 650, Scrambler Sherpa 650, and the Himalayan 450. I believe the Himalayan 450 is a liquid-cooled version. Many people were thinking that the Himalayan was going to get a 650 engine. But if you watch a previous show I did some time ago now, I showed you release footage or spy photos. People seeing this bike on the street as a test bike. It's a liquid-cooled 450cc. The higher displacement version of the Himalayan ADV is likely to be Royal Enfield's next big launch for 2023. So, hey, watch out for Royal Enfield. Like I say, if you're a fan of Royal Enfield, you've got new bikes coming, and that's all I could say on that one, really. Okay, so the next one, so that was that. Right. Again, I wanted to skip through. Sorry about the glitch on the websites. First of all, I don't know what happened there. Sometimes my system just suddenly randomly plays up. I go to click on the button and nothing happens. But there we go. So, what I'm going to talk about now is the main body of it. I'm going to dedicate this whole live show, this whole radio podcast this podcast, if you want to listen to it later, you just listen to this as a podcast, right? You don't have to watch the video, but there we go. I'm going to dedicate this show to discussing motorcycle charitable events per se, but motorcycle charities, and really what's going on with your money. And I'm going to use a specific example as an observation, and I'm not going to tell you whether I think it's right or wrong. I'm just going to ask you, what do you guys think? What do you guys think of this, right? Okay, I like that little maraca bit at the end of that little transition. Okay, let's get on to the websites here, right? So this is, here we go. So this is the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, okay? And basically, they're ramping up the advertiser Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. And Movember, because there's going to be lots of events going on. But the main event coming out, let me just share here, that was 2022. The next event is coming up in May, I believe it is. Yeah, it's May 22nd. Let me just check if I've got my press release here, because I think it was something... Yeah, no, I can't remember. I might have deleted it. Sorry. I usually do have a habit of doing that. But anyway, it's going to come up in May. Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, and basically what they do. It's you can go and read the history of Distinguished Gentleman Rides if you don't know. But basically, they're taking the concept is to take retro bikes, essentially, right? Retro bikes, and dress up like a dapper chapper, right? And go ride your bike on a charitable ride, right? And you raise money for the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, but the money that they take, they donate it to predominantly men's charities, right, or men's good causes, right? So what they did a few years ago, Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, they linked up with the movement or the charity Movember, right? And so what happens is that Movember, their money that they raise goes to things like prostate cancer, men's mental health, and things like that. If you go to the website, Distinguished Gentleman's Ride or Movember, it's all there in black and white. It's plain as day. I'm not saying there's anything here that is to be concerned about. It's all good stuff, right? And let's just say this right from the very start as well, that when you're talking about motorcycle charities or motorcycling charities or biker charities or bikers, motorcycle people, whatever you want to call them, raising money for charity, they always do it, in my experience, and I'm absolutely sure, and I will kind of say this till I'm blue in the face, they do it from a good place, right? They do it from a good intentions, right? But the question is, how much of the money that is being raised, let's say, goes to the cause that you want? So this is a big thing in charitable organisations, right? How much of the money goes to the cause? And it's the administration costs of the charity. And people make a big thing about this, and in some cases quite right. But you can't say, the problem with charities, not the problem, but the distinction you have to make with charities is that it really depends what their operating costs are, what kind of charity they are, and what the overheads are. Okay, so that's different. So there's like a gold standard of global charities, let's say, that they say the administration cost has got to be somewhere between, I can't remember, there is something where it says Movember here. I think Movember have got it. Let me just try and get this. There we go. Yes, yeah, so the gold standard, I think it was something like 28%, I think, maximum 28-30%. I think it's what it is that what you want of, oh yeah, here we go, 15 to 25%. I think international best practice for charities in general, this is that their administration cost is 15 to 25%. However, there are some charities we know who operate at 80, 90, 95% administration costs. Now, some of those you think, oh, what the hell's going on there? But also, I don't know the specifics of those, but sometimes some charities may operate at a higher, let's say they might operate at 30, 35, 40%. Because of the nature of what they do, it's very, very expensive, right, to run that kind of thing. So I'm just going to set aside charities for now, because that's almost like a separate discussion. But here is something where an event, an organizer, an individual is saying, I'm going to raise money for a charitable event. This is like the old Steve Martin gag, right? Where he sets up, there's a movie, right, where he sets up loads of these water bottles to raise money for, I don't know, the starving kids of God knows what, whatever. And so people are putting loads of money in, and then he just takes the money, just say, oh, thanks very much, and he just takes it, and he just puts it all in his pocket, right? You know, that kind of thing. It's, it's this kind of thing. Yes, they're raising money, and people are donating, but where does the actual money go? So, Distinguished Gentleman's Ride was highlighted by a certain YouTuber who was making doing his own charitable event, and he's basically saying, well, the money doesn't go to where it should go. So I wanted to do a little bit of a dig in here and say, well, what's going on? Right. So let the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride here. Let me just give you their facts and figures. And they have events all over cities all over the world. And you go in, it started in New Zealand, wasn't it, or Australia, and basically it went all over the world. But basically, where is it here? Did the fundraising, right? Where does my fundraising go exactly? Right, so here we go. So Movember, this is who they partnered up with a few years ago, invest funds raised by the gentlefolk of Distinguished Gentleman's Ride in approved programs in line with the foundation principles of both parties, right? And as I said, it's like men's health, prostate cancer. And they also, notably, they invest or they help support research programs as well and studies and everything now. So what the money goes to is really good. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with this. Well, it's everything is right with it. Put it that way, right? So it's I'm not here to criticize where the money goes because I think it's absolutely great. But here's the question, right? They're saying 100% of the funds raised go directly to Movember. So I thought, wow, that's amazing. So you're raising money as an organisation, let's say, because they've got a fancy website, and you've got to think, these organisations, like Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, there's always going to be costs associated with putting on events, right? Insurance, whatever. Publicity, websites, everything. There's always an expense. You can always rely on people to volunteer who are directly connected with the movement or who take part, right? In terms of marshalling, security, whatever, putting up banners and putting up flyers and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, that's what volunteering is. That's what you do. You give your time for free. You try and scramble whatever resources you've got and you donate it, right? So that's fine. The problem is when you need the services of external people or external companies, and those companies may or may not volunteer their services, or they may not be so charitable, because let's face it, they're a business. So they can say, hold on, well, if we give our services to you for free, then maybe we have to give our services to everybody else for free. So therefore, we're not in business anymore. And I get it. This is not a criticism on those companies whatsoever. But what it means, it illustrates that at some point, some people are going to have to be paid. And I'll give you a scenario, right? Let's just say that you want to set up a motorcycle event, and because where the event is held, you've got different access points. So you need marshalling and you need some kind of security presence, somebody on the gate, but you got 6 gates. Okay, how am I going to coordinate everybody? You think, handheld radios, right? So you think, great, you ask your volunteers or your friends, you say, who's got a handheld radio? 6 of which are going to operate on the same frequency. Oh, nobody. Right. So we have to go to the local radio shop, wherever that is, right? And we have to go and get 6 radios. So you walk into the radio shop and you say, look, I'm running this charitable event. Can I have 6 radios? And they say, I'm sorry, we can't. We just can't justify that expense. But I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll try and give you a bit of a discounted rate, okay? They may be charitable in that respect, but fundamentally, you still have to pay for that. So there's an expense that you have to pay, right? So that has to be absorbed somewhere. That has to be paid for. Now, you could say, okay, I, as an individual, I'm going to personally buy this and donate it, let's say, to the cause. But you got to imagine how many other things have to be bought and paid for. So the costs can get alarmingly high. Right. So here's where I'm going with this. So Distinguished Gentleman's Ride say the 100% of the funds go to Movember. However, it says the 100% of the funds go to Movember. The Distinguished Gentleman's Ride is then reimbursed costs relating to the delivery and running of the actual event. Right. The costs involved ensuring the safety and well-being of all participants, as well as the best possible management of a global event. These costs relate to a 20% cost to fundraising ratio. Our priority will always be to protect the event and ensure its safe delivery on a global level for all participants involved. Right, I'm not saying here that they don't spend the money. I can absolutely see where money has to be spent to put on these events and to make it like a global presence. That's not what the problem is. But you can already see that they themselves don't deduct 20% before sending on the fundraising. It's kind of a weird way, is that they donate all the money and then 20% is kicked back, right? And I don't mean kick back in a kind of, shady way, as it were, like a kickback, like a bribe or anything like that. It's just kickback. It's just returned, right? The problem here is the 20% that's sent back, right? Where is you could say, well, there are going to be accounts, and what happens is there are accounts for each individual event that happens all around the world. But is it justified to have 20%? 20% seems like quite a round number to cover the costs. Now, it could be that the actual costs are 22% and they're only getting 20%. It could be that the costs are actually 16% and they're getting 20%. So in other words, they're getting 4 or 5% surplus back. You see where I'm going with this? You could ask questions if you wanted to. Now, for me, I would say, actually, whatever your costs are, if you're getting 20%, but that 20% is that extra, that surplus that you might be getting back, is held over to kickstart the next year, in other words, to invest in the event to keep it going, then I say, okay, fine, I get it. It's not a gross charge here. It's not a gross admin fee. It's not like they're saying we need 50% back or 60% back. 20% seems reasonable, right? It does? Great. I'm glad you agree. But here's the other issue. Movember themselves, let me just bring this up for you. I can't remember where it is. Here we go. Movember themselves, so they've got the money from Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. 20% has already gone, so they've only got 80%. Movember then take, which is in line with best global practices for charitable charities, right? They take 22. They take. This is for the UK here, but it's similar all around the world, right? They take 22.2% of the funds raised as administrative costs, with 2.9% retained for investment in future campaigns. So, I get it, right? I get it from that point of view. But now you're not talking about 22.2%, are you? Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've misunderstood this. But actually, it's 22.2 plus the deduction of 20%. And you've also, now you're up to 42.2. You retain an extra 2.9. So that's 22.2. So that's 45.1%. So you're not dealing as a way of raising money. 45.1% doesn't go to the cause that it's supposed to go to. This is an observation. Let me know what you think. Now, I'm going to come back to this in a minute. Let's just say you run a charitable event. No, let me backtrack. Let's just say that you put on an event for your motorcycling friends. Let's say you're a motorcycle club, right? You're a motorcycle rally club. You're just a bunch of genuine biker type dudes who want to put on an event. Whether you're in some kind of whatever you are. I go to rallies not all the time, but I go to rallies. I know people, good friends of mine, organise rallies. Great people, right? So what they have, it depends. It varies all over the place, right? But it depends. Obviously, they're going to try and raise money in some cases, but they've got to raise money for the event, right? Now, sometimes they raise money for the event for a greater cause that they may be aligned with. It might be, disabled bikers. It might be, I don't know, political lobby groups. It might be their motorcycle club funds, if you know what I mean. Whatever. They're raising money for a particular reason. Now, they've got to cover the costs of that. And one of the problems of motorcycle rallies or any kind of motorcycle event, in fact, any event really, has been the rising costs and the impact of COVID, the impact on rising costs of insurance, and the reduction of the number of people who go to these events like they used to do back in the day, in some cases, not all cases, but in some cases. And it depends where you are in the world as well, right? All of a sudden, these events, these rallies, haven't really been able to be sustained. They've had to shut down, they've had to close, they've had to, downsize or whatever it is. So they've struggled in just keeping the event and paying for all the services that need to be paid for. Now, if you run a motorcycle event, if you're whatever, you kind of run it in many ways by trying to get as many people volunteering to help with that event, right? If you're in a motorcycle club, for example, then you're going to get people associated with that motorcycle club, or even members, right, to volunteer to put this show on the road, right? If you're, just putting on a motorcycle rally, amongst your friends, that you're going to say, okay, right, let's have a committee. Let's just get together. Let's just sort out who can bring what to the party, who can bring what services. Do we know any people who'd be willing to give it for free or at a discounted rate? Do you know what I mean? You as a group of people, you would go around and say, look, okay, I can do this. I've got this back at my home, or I've got generators that I use for work, at my personal work, but I'll bring them along, for the, you know what I mean? So you're all contributing to bring this show on the road. But as I said, exactly the same with the charities. Some things have to be paid for. So there's going to be a lot of costs associated with an event. Sometimes it's insurance. Sometimes it's, music acts. Sometimes it's lighting rigs. Sometimes it's, the alcohol that you have to, buy if you're running a bar, that is. So many different costs that have to be paid for. They may come in at discounted rates. Some you may get, donated to you. But fundamentally, every event, at some point, some things have to be paid for. So the money that the event raises through ticket sales or through a bar bill, selling drinks or selling pitches to, vendors, traders to come in, that goes towards paying for the costs, right? Now, if they make a profit on above the costs, then it really depends what was the purpose of the event in itself. Well, sometimes the event is just to help support the organisation itself. If you're a motorcycle club, right, it could be a fundraising thing for you guys as a motorcycle club to have, you want to, I don't know, whatever. It might be, let's say, one of your friends has fallen on bad times. They've got, I don't know, medical bills, whatever, that you want to help support the family. So you're going to have an event to help support whatever. Sometimes it is for a higher purpose, let's say, in terms of, it could be for a political lobby, it could be for something like that. So you're going to cover the costs of your event, pay for that. You may even retain a little bit so you can invest it in next year's event or in an event in 3 months' time, right? No problem there. But fundamentally, the profit, let's say, that you make on that event is kicked up to, and I don't want to be very mathy about it, but it's kicked up to, the whatever you're raising the money for. Sometimes that profit margin is kicked up into lots of different avenues, right? So sometimes it's kicked up to an organisation. Sometimes it might be kicked up to a charity, right? So you're raising money for a charity. Fantastic. It's all great. But what I'm trying to tell you is that when you're raising money from a motorcycle event, not all the money that you think you're paying at a gate will go to the intended destination. You think you've got to acknowledge that there are got to be costs that are going to be paid for. So they have to be paid for. Otherwise, there's no event. Otherwise, there is no way of raising money in the future. Now, the problem is that people, and I've seen this. Okay, I've seen this, and I've heard about this, and I've seen this. People may go to any kind of event. It doesn't have to be a motorcycle event. Any kind of event. And they can criticize, and they can say, "Oh, this wasn't rubbish. This wasn't very good. The music was rubbish. The beer was flat. The weather was rubbish." And somehow it's the fault of the organisers, right? Now, sometimes it is, but lots of times it isn't. There's lots of things going behind the scenes of people who don't know about the organisation of these things. It's easy to criticize, let's put it that way, without knowing the facts, or without having the experience of trying to raise these things. I've always said, and I've said this in previous things that I've done, I have a tremendous amount of respect for any group of people, friends that I know, that I class as friends, that I warmly say hello to, and unfortunately I don't see them as often as I should. I know that, and that's on me. But I have an amazing amount of respect for those guys, and you know who you are if you're watching, right? Who put on motorcycle rallies, and regardless if they're going to kick up money to, any charitable event, I don't really care about that, and I don't care if you're putting up to some kind of lobby group or you're raising money for your own organisation. It doesn't matter. What I'm saying, I have a tremendous amount of respect for just putting on the event. It just takes an amazing amount of coordination, volunteering, goodwill, everything. You're praying to the gods that everything goes all right. You're praying that the weather's going to be good. Maybe not too hot, maybe not too cold. The dreaded rain. Even if it's raining, can you still have a fun? Lots of things. But I always understood right from the very first time that I looked at a motorcycle rally, and I probably was about, I don't know, 15, 16, 17, I don't know, something like that. And I'd go to small ones, and I could always see, because I come from a business background as well, and I come from, family, with business, and I can always see, go anywhere, and I can see, I can see where the money is here, I can see where the money's going, I can see where it's being spent. It's just a thing that I have, and if you're in business, you probably feel that you've got a similar kind of insight. You can go anywhere and you can see, okay, because I can see costs there. I can see, people volunteering there. Let's say in this case, and I can see, right, okay, that's where income is. That's where it is, and at some point, the books have got to balance. Now you could say, well, the books don't have to balance because all you're doing is for charity. Great. As a one-off event, that works. That mindset works. That mindset works because the mindset is we're just going to do whatever we can. And I've done things for raising money for charity as well. And what I've never told people is that the money that was raised for the charity, okay, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but then it's raised for the charity. I've spent more on the event from my personal money than the money was raised to go up to the charity. Do you see what I mean? Okay. So as a single event, that you can say, right, we're going to absorb it, we're going to raise money, and whatever we raise, regardless of the cost, we'll absorb the cost, but whatever comes in, we're going to do that. That's okay for one-off event. But individual finances are always affected. And it's okay if you're flush with money, and it's okay if you're all living on good times, let's say, in terms of, getting money in, you're on good jobs. Well, let's say when things start impacting on that, and this is where charities always really feel it, when there's rising costs, where, people are struggling with money, let's say, people start to tighten their belts, and they tighten their belts in a lot of cases, not only on spending on products and services, a lot I was talking about in the last live show, but also in the ability to donate money. They may still be able to donate their time, but it's about donating money. Right? Now, there is a difference here between donating money and donating products or donating toys. Let's say on a toy run or an Easter egg run, right? where you're basically, you as an individual, you're not really given money. You're just going to go and buy a toy or a Easter egg or whatever it is. You're going to give it to the event organizers. You're going to go on your processional ride, right, to wherever it is. The event organizers collect all the toys, collect all the things, and they may just literally walk them in, carry all these products, these toys, into the end user, which could be a hospital, children's ward in a hospital. It could be a children's charity, whatever that is, all over the world. I've mentioned the ones that I've kind of do toy runs for it, but the toy runs all over the world, and they have different end recipients, right? It depends which they're raising money for. In that scenario, there isn't any money being dealt with, and in most cases that there are costs. There might be costs, but those costs are absorbed by the people who are just raising the event, or the everybody might put in a fiver, let's say, and that helps to pay for something. For the most cases, they get local authorities on board, they get local police on board, let's say, they get local other motorcycling organisations on board, you get general motorcycling people to embrace what this event is, right? And they all come for the day or for the afternoon just to help support this event. And fundamentally, you're just taking toys or Easter eggs or whatever it is, to a place. And it's great. Lots gets media attention, and it's all really cool, right? But there isn't anything where anything can disappear. Now, you could say, okay, some unscrupulous people might say, hey, do you know what? We're going to take a few boxes of toys, right? I've never known this to happen, by the way. But what I'm saying is, it's open to it. People's going to take a few boxes of toys, and they're going to go and keep it for themselves, and they're going to try and sell it on eBay or something like that. I mean, come on. I don't think anybody's ever done that. If they have, yeah. But what I'm saying is, I can never see it happening. And whilst I can see there might be a temptation, whilst I see there might be opportunity, I don't think it's there. I don't think it's there because it's too cumbersome to do it. And the reward, after you've, might have stolen toys, there's hardly any reward there. Financial reward, right? If it was gold bars or something like that, then you can say, okay, there's big temptation there. People would take it away from, children or a children's hospital or whatever, and they keep it for themselves because it's money, because it's a high value product, right? Whereas toys and chocolate, they're not high value products. So why are you going to steal it, right? Some people would, I'm sure, but, most people wouldn't. So for those kinds of charitable events or charity organised things, let's say, there isn't much scope, in my opinion, for things to disappear. I don't want to use the word fraud or fraudulent, but you know where I'm coming from, where things can suddenly not go where they're supposed to go, right? However, with charitable events or motorcycle charitable events, we've got to acknowledge that all the money won't always go to the intended destination, because they have to make sure that the event itself is able to be self-sustaining. So it's self-sustaining so they can repeat the process. So the question is, what would you rather have? Would you rather have a one-off event where £10,000, dollars, shekels, is donated to a charity? Or would you have an event that can be repeated year in, year out for the next 30 or 40 years, and for every time they're gonna raise £7,000, dollars, shekels? 3,000 they keep for themselves, to help pay for everything, and also invest in next year's operation, next year's event. But the charity, whilst they're getting less for the first year, every other year they're getting 7,000. They're getting 7,000. So, it's either a one-off 10,000 or multiple years of £7,000. These figures I've just picked out of my head, right? They're not real figures, right? Obviously, you're going to go for the sustained approach, right? You're going to go for the sustained approach. That's exactly what it is. But you as an individual, let's just say you have full stop. But men's mental health, yes, I've tried to raise money for those in the past as well, different organisations. But let's say I want to raise. I've tried to do this as well in the past. By the way, I've tried to raise events, and COVID put the kibosh in quite a few of these events, which I wanted to raise money for. I was going to do lots of different endurance rides, challenges, and raise money for men's mental health, not men's mental health, I should say, mental health charities, right? And I had a whole series, because I'm a great believer in this, that mental health is something that's been really overlooked in many, many years. But in the last couple of years since COVID as well, it's spiking. So this is something we cannot ignore, right? But I've always said this, right? Okay, so if, let's say, I want to raise money for mental health, and I could look at something like the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride and say, do you know what? Instead of me trying to raise money, what I'll just go there on their ride. I'll register. I'll pay for registration fee or whatever it is. I don't know. I'll put money. I'll try and raise money, and then I'll give all that money to them. Wash my hands of it. I know it's going to mental health or men's mental health, but it isn't. So this is where this YouTuber I saw made this comment about it's not going to where you think it's going. And if I do an event myself, I know that all of the money is going, or as much of it as possible, outside of the costs and outside of whatever we have to pay for, is going directly to the charity that I want it to go to, right? So if, let's say, I want to raise money for a mental health charity, let's say a local one to me, all right? I do a local one or a national one, just a UK-based national one, right? I'm not going to give my money to Distinguished Gentleman's Ride or to any other motorcycle event that is raising money for charity or any other broad spectrum of charities, because I want the money to go to a cause that I feel deeply about, and it's that cause there, that organisation there, that charity there, that group there. That's what I want my money to go to. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say, right, I don't want that. I don't want Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. I'm going to set up my own event, and I'm going to try and raise money or whatever. I'm just going to do my own crowdfunding page, my own Just Giving page. I'm going to do my own thing, an endurance ride or whatever it is. I'm going to play silly games. I'm going to shave my hair. Well, can't shave my hair off, you know what I mean? But, I'm going to do these kinds of things to raise money, get people to donate to me to raise money. I'm going to fulfill my obligation that what I said I would do. I said, I'd shave my head and I would do it, yeah, right. Or I would do a long distance ride in 24 hours, yeah, that's what I do. I would gather up all the money that they give me, and the honourable thing that I would do, okay, is either I've got two options. Either I pay for all the expenses that I incurred for doing this, and whatever's left I would give to the charity directly, or, as I've done in previous times before, anything that I've personally done myself as a one-off event, whatever costs I've incurred, that's on me. That's got nothing to do with the money that I've raised. That's on me. The money that I've raised, I've got, and I've said this previously, the money that I've handed over in the past, I've actually spent more in costs than the money that went over. So this is the level here. But if I'm going to raise an event, and let's say that event, I'm going to say this is going to be the Revelator Alf charity drive, right, or charity event. And I'm going to say, and it is for mental health charity, UK mental health charity, right? whatever it is. I don't know. It could be children's charity, it could be anything. But this is my event. I've got a field, I've got a farmer to give me his field, I've got access, I've got marquees, or I've got, farm buildings we can use as, as to host it. We can have it like a straw, whatever, bales of straw, people sit down, make it very basic, make it very rustic, whatever. Like, have it like a cookout, an afternoon cookout, whatever. People can turn up on their bikes, we can have music playing, people on a banjo, or whatever music. I wouldn't have a banjo playing, but you know what I mean. But that kind of thing. People have to come, they have to pay £10 to enter, £20, whatever. They can also donate there and then, right? So I can take that money, and let's say I've had to pay for something, but I want to make sure that this becomes an annual thing, or every 6 months or something like that. I've got to say, there's no way I can keep this going just by me. There's no way I can rely on people just to keep on paying for this, or even volunteering their services, or giving things for free when they really should be paid. That's where you got to accept that things will need to be paid for. So therefore, the amount of money going to the charity, as I said previously, will be less, but it will be more sustainable. But here with distinguished gentleman's right. Let me just bring this up here. And Movember, the association here is that you've actually got 2 lots of admin. Now, this is no different. If, let's say, I did my own charitable event, like I just say, and I put my money and I give it to a charity, it's going to be exactly the same. I've taken my expenses out of it, or the event expenses out of it. I've given the money to them. They're going to take their expenses out. And this is the problem, that there's going to be some kind of issue. So unless I don't take the expenses out, it goes all as an event organizer. If it goes straight to the charity, then they take whatever expenses they have, whatever. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what what observations you can make here. But all I'm saying is that here you've got a global event. You've got people who are donating money. They're making millions every year. There are accounts that you can look up on their websites. So you can look up their accounts of previous years and different events around the world and everything. They're going to millions, and it's all great. It all goes to fantastic courses and fantastic research projects and all that kind of stuff. But I just question how much money is going to the cause itself, to do the good that it intends. And it comes back to the very first thing that I was saying in this live show. The very first thing was, it really depends what the charity is engaged in and what the costs are associated with that, right? And some charities may they actually take millions to run. It takes millions and millions to run on an annual basis. Other charities, it might be a few thousand, whatever, just hardly anything at all. It really depends. Some, the charity is just purely operated on a shoestring budget, and it's just purely volunteers, and nobody takes anything out, and it all goes. But they're not doing it on a scale. So let's just say, for example, you have. Let me just get rid of this, by the way. There we go. Let's just say, for example, that you have in your town, in your city, you have a community project. So the community project, it's purely just for your area. This is what we call community projects. It's just for your area. It could be a children's play group. It could be a church thing. It could be a local hall. It could be a local garden that needs to be, whatever. It could be something to preserve the tree. or preserve the windmill, or some kind of preservation society, whatever it is, but it's a local community project. So you want to raise money for that project there itself. Well, there, in those cases, it might be a charity, but most things on preservation societies or groups that come together, it may not even be a charity. It may just be some kind of local community project that you can raise money for and things can be paid for. So let's just say, for example, the classic one, the church needs a new roof, right? Well, the church needs a new roof. Okay, maybe that's a bad example because the whole church system themselves could pay for this, right? Why do they need to raise money from us? Okay, bad example, but you get my point. The church needs a new roof. We're going to group together as a community just to raise money to hire a contractor in to come up onto that roof and fix that roof. There we go. So how much is it going to cost to fix the church roof? He says, it's £1,000, dollars, shekels. Right, everybody together. Let's do a cake sale. There we go. We've raised £1,000. There you go. There's £1,000. Fix that roof, please. Thanks very much. Do you know what I mean? Therefore, all the money that you've raised has gone directly to something, a contractor, a service, to do what it's supposed to do, fix something, or to, buy the property, or to keep this thing going on. It might be to say, look, we've got a children's nursery, but we need a nursery teacher, right? Nobody's coming to this area. We can't find somebody, nobody's volunteer. We can't find volunteers anymore. They just don't happen. But regulations state that you have to have a qualified teachers. Okay, I'm just going off my head here. So therefore, as a community project, you say, do you know what? We're going to raise money, or we're going to set up a charity, whatever. We're going to raise money to pay for that teacher. Whatever the standard, industry standard is to pay for that, we're going to pay for it. There we go. That's what it is. Or we're going to pay to, part of it to supplement. That's it. That's it. So that your money is going direct for a particular thing. Now, I'm not saying to you at all, that you should only support those community projects. I'm not saying that at all. But it does seem to be that those community projects, exactly where that money is going. Now, let's just say you have a particular cause that you're interested in, whatever that cause is. It could be cancer research. It could be whatever, children's charity, mental health charity. You'll say, do you know what? There is a particular charity there. I like what they do. Yes, I know there are administration costs, whatever, but I'm not going to go via an intermediary, which Distinguished Gentleman's Ride is. It's an intermediary. I'm going to go direct to him. I'm going to give them my money direct to the charity. Cut out the middleman. Yeah. So in this case, Distinguished Gentleman's Ride and Movember. In fact, you know what? I'll say, I'm not going to go on the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. And if I am, I'm just going to go along. I may pay my subscription, registration fee, whatever, to go on the ride, because I want to go on the ride, right? I want to go and enjoy riding around and, dressing up like the nines and, all that sort of stuff. But what I'm going to do, I'm not going to give the money to DGR. I'm going to give the money direct to Movember. It could be that. It could be that you go to a motorcycle rally, a motorcycle event, who is raising money for whatever cause, and you can say, do you know what, I'm going to pay my money to go to the event, but do you know what, I'm not going to buy their drinks, I'm not going to whatever, sorry, that's a bad example, I'm still going to buy their drinks or whatever, but I'm not going to put extra money in their box, let's say, in their collection tin or whatever it is. Do you know what I'm going to do? That charity that they're raising money for, I'm going to give my money direct to them. Now, you could say, God, this is a bit, you're being a bit anally retentive. For me, I wouldn't do that, by the way. I would say you're raising money for them, great. If I like the cause, I'll put an extra bit, an extra fiver in, an extra 10, an extra 20 quid, an extra £100, whatever it is. I'll put my money in there. Thanks. I've paid go in there. Yes, I'm going to have a good time or not. I may complain about it or not. That's your prerogative if you don't like the event that you're going to. But you know that you've paid your money for an event. The sideline is that they're raising money. You willingly donate money to that cause, and you hope that money goes there. But I think they're just observations here. They're observations to be had of where the money goes, and does the organisations like Distinguished Gentleman's Ride and Movember, we're talking 40. I don't know. This is where I'm seeing it. It seems if 45% of the money that you think you're donating or raising money for doesn't go to the project. I just think that doesn't seem quite right to me. But then again, the projects are fantastic. The intention is fantastic. The millions that they're raising each year is fantastic. So I don't want people to think that I'm sitting here and telling you not to go on a Distinguished Gentleman's Ride or go to Movember. I'm not saying that at all. But I just there's something gnawing away at me here, and I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. So when I saw a particular YouTuber who was doing a charitable event, and he was talking about this charitable event that's coming up, and if you watch motorcycle channels, you'll know, you may have guessed who I'm referring to, right? Now I kind of see what he means. At first, I've got to be honest with you. I've got to be honest with you. When he first said it, I was like, "Hey, what is he on about? What's wrong with Distinguished Gentleman's Ride? What's wrong with that? I just don't get it." But then it was something that was, scratching away at the cogs in my mind, and I was thinking, what's the problem here? What's going on? What is it? And that was it. This is it. And I can see what he means. I can see what he means. I can see the raised eyebrows. I can understand the questions, and I can understand the questions of any charitable event, because they're not a charity, right? Distinguished Gentleman's Ride are not a charity. It's any charitable event that you're raising money to give to a charity, right? Big distinction here. Big distinction. Raising money. Where does that money go? So if you're raising money as an individual and you're giving it to an intermediary who's going to take their cut and then give it to them as their, it just seems a bit. Now, bearing in mind what I was talking about, motorcycle rallies or motorcycle clubs or whatever who put on an event and they're raising money. We've got to make the distinction. I suppose I didn't really make this distinction, which I should have done, and I apologise for that. But let's just make this distinction. If the motorcycle event that you're doing, like a motorcycle rally, its primary purpose is not to raise money for the charity, let's say, but its primary purpose is to have the event, and its secondary purpose is whatever extra profit they make, we're going to go to, it's going to go to the dog's home or the donkey sanctuary or the children's charity or the children's ward here on the hospital or the whatever, the local community project, whatever it is, right? It doesn't make a difference. If that's it, that's absolutely fine. There's no question here, because what you're saying is to say it's the secondary purpose. You can say whatever's left over, do it. And this is when people ask me, and I've said this repeatedly because people kind of raise an eyebrow at me when I kind of said this before. But people say to me and say, what would you do if you won 10 million, 20 million, 30 million pounds on the lottery, let's say, right? And I'd say the first thing I would do is set up a business that that is to be run as a business, but a portion of the charity, a portion of the profits, or a substantial amount of the profits, goes to a nominated charity of the year. And people go, well, why don't you just give the money to the charity? That's just, if you want to just give the money. Oh, you're so horrible, terrible, And so this is how I reply. If I just give the money to the charity, my pot of gold, as it were, my wealth just goes down and down and down and down, right? And it just goes to the charity. It goes back to what I was saying before. It's not sustainable for the long term. Especially if I'm given huge chunks of it, I'm just going to give it away. Now, for some people, they say, yeah, that's fine. That's what I want to do. Give it away, and fine, that's up to you. But in my mind, what I would be doing is say, hold on. I've got to look at a bigger picture here. One, I want to think about long-term sustainability and being able to not only give money to one charity, but potentially give money to other charities or other community projects, which I think are really deserving, right? That are not charities, but are community projects. The other thing I want to talk about is say, well, actually, if I can create a business here that's selling profits, so, selling products, let's say, or services that I can earn money from, as in the company can earn money, that means also I have the potential to employ people. So if I'm employing people, I'm giving people jobs. I'm providing jobs for people. I'm giving them income. I'm helping them support their own families. So therefore, whilst I'm not a charitable organisation, I am a business running a business that will sink the bulk of its profits into charitable organisations at the end. And I always say that this is the best model for me. And one of the best examples of this, for those of you who don't know, and maybe those of you a bit longer in the tooth will know who this is. Very famous actor, died many years ago now, Paul Newman, right? Paul Newman, very famous actor, multi-millionaire, right? But he also set up Newman's Foods, and with a couple of other guys. Newman's Foods, and they make sauces and stuff like that. I think they're still going. I think the company is still going. But it was started on the basis of this, that the company would run as a company, a proper company, would employ people properly, and it would pay them properly, the industry rate. But the money that they raised, the profits that they made, a portion of that, or I don't know what the portion is, 30, 40, 50%, whatever, would go to charities. That's the whole point of the business. It was to keep things going for future. And that's the way I would look at it. I would look at it exactly the same way. If I'm going to give money, if I'm going to have a huge chunk of money given to me, like a lottery win or something, I'll say, right, if I just give that money away, whilst it might be a quick fix in terms of a drug fix, whatever, it doesn't help the next charity. It doesn't help the charities of the future or the projects of the future. It just helps that particular thing right now, not for the future. And for my mind, I would want the now and the future as well. And that's the only way I would be able to do it. So this is where I kind of come back to the likes of Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, or you're trying to run an event to raise money, but do it an annual event, and you've got to have some kind of sustainability. And in order to have sustainability, you've got to have infrastructure in place, and you've got to have expenses that need to be paid and services that need to be paid. You can't rely on always having volunteers. You want to have 95%, of course, of volunteers if you can always have it. But there's always going to be things that you have to pay for. It's as simple as that. And in order for this to be an ongoing thing, so you can raise the money, like Distinguished Gentleman's Ride in November, of millions and millions over a global scale, right? You have to make it on a regular basis, and you have to incur costs and pay those costs. So I don't say there's a problem here with Distinguished Gentleman Ride, and I don't say there's a problem with Movember as two independent entities that are working closely with each other, whatever. But what I'm saying is that they're taking 20%. They're taking, whatever it is. They're taking 22.9 plus another 2.9. It's 45.1% of the money doesn't go to the actual cause. I think so. I could be wrong. So if I'm wrong here, let us know of the monies here. And what you think. All I can say is I think it's, you can dig into these very, very deeply, and you can start scraping away at things that really shouldn't be scraped away at. Because fundamentally, what you're doing is that you're questioning people with really good intentions. And I do not question Distinguished Gentleman's Ride or Movember in any way, shape or form, and I do not question any motorcycle event that is raising money for a good cause. And my hat's off to you. You have my full backing, my full support and everything like that. But what I'm trying to say or explain or have an observation of is where the money goes. Follow the money. Where does it go? And there could be an observation where people are looking at an intermediary an intermediary organisation that is raising money to give to a charitable event like Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, and there'll be a cause to say, like this YouTuber was saying, do you know what, I'm not going to give my money to them, I'm going to have my own event and I'm going to have my money go direct to this local project, this organisation right here. This is where because I know all the money will go, and hats off to you for doing that, And shall I tell you? I don't know. I don't know if I should tell you who the YouTuber was. I'm not. I don't want to publicly belittle somebody or anything like that. I call it as it is, right? And at first I thought, that's a bit harsh. But when I looked at it, like I said, no, I could see the issue. But there we go. Listen, all I can say is, if you're interested, I don't know. I'm in two minds. Morris, hello, yeah, tell us. I'm actually in two minds if I should tell you or not. I tell you what, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you who the YouTuber is. But what I'm saying is, go look around at motorcycle YouTubers, and you'll know one or a couple that are doing. They've created their own events for a local project, or whatever. That's all I can say. If you'll know who it is, right? And all I can say is, my hat's off to you, sincerely, for raising money and doing good causes and going out of your way to do stuff for people. I absolutely commend you for that. I just couldn't quite understand where you were coming from with this Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. And whilst this is not a criticism of Distinguished Gentleman's Ride or Movember, I can see absolutely your possible concerns, and why you would want to do it in a different way. I can see it. Absolutely understand it. That's it. That's all I can say. Anyway, listen, guys. It's been an interesting day, isn't it? It's an interesting show. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I've actually. I'm not sure if I've actually achieved anything. Hopefully, it's a good discussion. Hopefully, it's something that you might be thinking about. And please, especially in these times, if we could be charitable or whatever, and I'll be completely honest with you. In that, I don't tend to want to give any donations to charities that I cannot, what's the word I'm looking for? Touch myself. Because there are so many different charities out there. There are so many good causes out there. You cannot, in your mind, you cannot help them all out. There's no way you can do it. And there's so many charities out there, and there are so many programs out there. I mean, you think, do you know what? Why is there a charity here? Why isn't the government doing this? Why is there a hole in the system that requires a charity to sort it out? I just don't get it, So there are so many charities, but fundamentally, you've just got to pick a charity that is dear to your heart, right? That you connect with, and that's what it is. And for me personally, I just connect with charities that are relatively near to me, but also ones that I have and I not necessarily identify with, but I can see there's a problem that this charity is trying to help. And I can say, Morris, I stopped my bank donations a couple of years ago when I found out how much was going to admin and massive salary for the bosses. I mean, this is a common, of course, this is a common thing. But it's an interesting thing when you say about charities, because this is where I stop short of being critical of charities, because I don't know all the fundamentals here and I don't know all the what's going on. But here's an interesting point. In order for certain charities to run professionally and to keep this sustainability, right, you need professional people within it, right? And this may be hard for some people to understand, but you need expertise and professionals within it. So some charities, some projects group can be run by the likes of you and I, right? They can be run like you. Hey, friends, let's all get together and let's just do this and set this up, and we'll do all little raising monies, and we'll go and rattle our tins, and we'll go and knock on doors, and we'll say, I don't even know if that's legal anymore. I don't know. There is some kind of legality about raising money. Anyway, I don't know about that. But what I'm saying is, we'll get people and we'll have the water barrels, water bottles, and people. Hey, put your coinage in here. We can do all that, right? But it's always a struggle, and it's always on a small scale. When you want to ramp it up and get into professional fundraising, or into fundraising that acts like a corporation to be like a corporation, you need, and trust me when I say this, you need professionals who know what they're talking about, who know what they're doing. If you want professionals to come and work for you as an organization, as a charity, whatever it is, or community project, whatever it is, you have to pay that going rate. You have to pay that industry rate, because otherwise they won't come for you. They won't come to you. They'll go to somewhere else that is paying for it. Fundamentally, you may want to go and work for a charity. You may want to think, I'm doing a good cause, but fundamentally it's still a job, and fundamentally you've got to support your own life and your own family, right? In most cases, you may want to volunteer. You may say, well, I'm going to volunteer a little bit or do that extra bit. You may want to work extra hard, whatever. But, it comes down to burning out and your personal sustainability in that role. Do you want to stay in that role just for a year, 2 years, or do you want to stay in that role for 20 years, 25 years? So to pay for those the industry standard, or the quality, or the expertise, you have to pay extra, and you have to pay high salaries in some cases. It depends on the charity, right? It depends on the size of the charity, how much money is coming in. So, lots of different things. Hello, Kakashiwa. Hello. But I get it. I understand where the reservation is. I definitely understand it. But, I think the charities can get a bad press, and the administration costs can get a bad press. And sometimes people they're not fully explained why. Kakashi, hello, thank you for joining. And thank you for joining on Twitch. Thank you very much. Right, hey, listen, guys, it's as I say, this thing is a huge subject, but I think the notion that you're going to go to a motorcycle event, I think should not detract you, or should not stop you from going to a motorcycle event or giving money to a cause if you believe that cause is right. It's up to you what you want to give your money to. Of course it is. But, just because not all the money goes to the charity of choice, there's reasons for it. That's all I'm saying. There's reasons for it. Sometimes it's hard to justify those reasons. Sometimes you think, well, those reasons are a little thin, but sometimes they're hard facts. You cannot deny it. Yeah, and if you want an event to carry on, every year, this is the only way it can be done. And it's up to you. Of course, you have to vote with your feet. You have to vote with your conscience. You have to vote with your wallets. You have to vote. As you say, Morris, you stop your donations. When, charities would phone me up and say, oh, how can you help support so-and-so in this other country? And I'll be like, no, I'm going to support my projects going on in my country and my community. That's how I do it. That's how I do it. And the thing is, okay, another tangent here, but you've got worthwhile charities operating in other countries. Don't get me wrong, they are completely worthwhile. But then you question why aren't the government of that particular country or the people of that country, why aren't they helping that? Why are they coming to Western countries to help? Because we're richer, right? We're richer. We can give more money, right? But then the governments can give more money or just as much money, So it's difficult. But there we go. It's a mad, mad world. We have helicopters flying around on Mars, but we can't get clean water into Africa. Well, again, there are projects, as I say, worthwhile projects. There are worthwhile projects all over the world. Worldwide, there's worthwhile projects all over the world. And the thing is, what I say with charities, if the charity doesn't touch you, then it's, for the most part, most people don't think it's a worthwhile charity. If you don't think it's going to be relevant to you, then you don't think it's going to be a charity, right? So now other people think actually that charity can either directly impact me, or there's a real risk here that because of my lifestyle, I may need that charity to come and help me out. Yeah, and I see this on a daily basis. And those of you know what I do, you'll know what I do, right? As a day job, right? So I'm not going to talk about that as a separate thing. But I'm very open about this kind of thing, and I always say I believe that the charities that that I may be associated with, or the charities that I may want to support, I believe that they are very noble charities, and they are very bona fide charities, and they're the right things for me to support, and I would hope that you would support them too. But I'm not going to tell you what charities I support, because that's entirely up to you. I'm not going to influence you either way. That's up to you. And that's what I always say. I've said this to people to their face. You've always got to find whatever you find is particular to you. Okay? There's no point in me giving money to a cat sanctuary if I don't own a cat, right? Because I don't identify it. A dog sanctuary, maybe, if I wanted to, because I've got a dog, Bobber Bailey. I got a my dog, my Muttley, which I'm very fond of. I'm growing more fond of my dog as he gets older. I don't know why. Maybe it's because we're a similar age now. Maybe he's like my bro. No, he's my. But there we go. That's another thing. Right, guys. Hey, listen. All I can say is thanks for watching. Thanks for it's been emotional, as a food for thought, as I say, food for thought. But lots of motorcycle events, and I suppose I wanted to bring this topic up today because of course what jogged the memory from what I saw from another YouTuber, but also there's going to be lots of motorcycle events started up now in this country and other Northern Hemisphere countries, right? As the weather improves, there's going to be a lot more events, and raising money for different things, and or paying for things or whatever. And I hope you go to these events and have a good time. I hope that you find that the causes that they're interested in raising money for, I hope you find them of use too, and of worthy as well of your attention, of your donations, of your money as well. And I hope this live show has helped to explain where the money goes in some cases, and how it is spent, and the reason why it's spent, and this sort of thing. And there are differences. There are so many differences between one charity to the next, and a lot of that is to do with the type, what the charity is involved in, what they actually do. That's and how big the charity is, and what level of expertise is required to run that particular charity. It's a minefield, I granted, and it's not always easy to figure out which way. Anyway, guys, listen. Thanks for watching. Go and enjoy your weekends. I may do a show tomorrow. I'll see how it goes. I'll see what I've got a couple of things. I've got a couple of things to go in the workshop. I don't know if you saw my shorts. I've sold one bike. I sold the Riehu, the righteous Riehu was sold, and I've started to work on the again on the Kawasaki Marowaki build. It's not really going to be a Marowaki, but it's a Z750 build with Marowaki colours, and bit of an oddball bike. I think it's going to be bit of a fun bike. But anyway, so I got the engine in the frame the other day. So if you go to my shorts, you'll see that quick thing. I'm not making much content on that. I'm just going to gradually just build it. I might just keep it for shorts, and away you go. But anyway, so I might just crack on for that. But I'm going to go for a ride, go for a bit lunch, spot a lunch. You know what I mean? Spot a lunch, and go for a little ride. But listen, all I can say is enjoy yourselves, enjoy whatever you're doing. It's been emotional. Thanks for watching. Cheers.